Yeah, so adaptive radiation, two examples, like I said, Darwin finches. Beaks in Darwin finches are adapted to the feed food available in the Galapagos Islands. And second is this marsupial mammals which are found in Australia. Now there is one called as parallel evolution. What do you mean by parallel evolution? Parallel evolution, parallel lines like this, isn't it? They don't converge or diverge, they run parallel. So, parallel evolution is found in unrelated organisms which have similar characters, similar traits, which have similar traits. Unrelated organisms having similar traits. Now, example of parallel evolution is seen in deer and horse. Deer and horse. Deer is two-toed and horse is one-toed. Deer is having two toes, whereas horse is having only one toe. Now, both are herbivores, both are very fast runners. So, maybe down somewhere in the ancestral, they were from one organism, they have diverged into two, but that is still not any, no evidence has been found as yet about that. So we take this what is called as parallel evolution. Two unrelated organisms, they have similar characters. What was see? Generally mammals. Mammals have five fingers and five toes. So what must have happened that the few toes over the evolution, that's I'm talking about horse because deer ka evolution kahin bhi mention nahi hai, but horse evolution is mentioned. In the horse evolution, the horse has evolved from an animal which was a size of a dog size animal. Horses are about 5 feet, 5.5 to 6 feet tall now. So the dog size animal got, what happened to it? Increased in height, and the number of toes in the horse, that is toes, the horse forelimbs and hind limbs, the number of toes in the horse started decreasing. Decreasing means reducing, they became rudimentary, of no use. So finally, the horse that has evolved, it took about one, two, three, four, five such fossil forms of horses are there recorded. And if you see, if you remember your geographical time scale, which I was explaining in the last class, the evolution of horse took place in the Cenozoic era from the Eocene epoch. So Eocene, then Oligocene, then Miocene, then Pliocene, and Pleistocene. So by Pleistocene, the horse was evolved. So, like I said, here this is called as parallel evolution. In fact, we used to teach evolution of horse in previous syllabus, but it's no more there in your syllabus. So that's the evolution of horse. They show parallel evolution. Now, what is convergent evolution? There's another called as convergent evolution. Convergent evolution. Convergent means to converge like this. है ना? To join in front, converge, come to a point. This is the point. So convergent evolution means if we say this is the ancestor of the organism, and this is the present generation. So the present generation of the organisms have more similarities than their ancestors. Okay? The present generation of the organisms have more similarities than their ancestors. So this is called convergent evolution. Now there's a diagram of convergent evolution in your textbook. I think I'll be sending it to you in the notes also. You'll find that NCRT page, they have given a list like this: marsupial mammal and placental mammal. So placental mammal and marsupial mammal, they are showing convergent evolution. Like say Tasmanian wolf, है ना? Tasmanian wolf. Tasmanian wolf has a marsupium, whereas simply wolf, placental mammal. Then marsupial rat, a rat having a brood pouch, simply rat, placental rat. These two show what you call as convergent evolution. So take one example from marsupium side and one from the placental side. So mole, marsupial mole and simply mole, placental. They are they so actually marsupial animals are what are called as oviviparous. Oviviparous. Whereas placental mammals are viviparous. They give birth to young ones. They give birth to young ones. These have a brood pouch. So the child is born and then it is there in the brood pouch for some time, and then only it can live independently. So there's a connection direct, there's no placenta in these marsupial mammals. So this is the difference. This is called as convergent evolution. Convergent evolution is that the present form of organisms have more similarities than their descendants or the ancestral organisms. So with this, we have completed about adaptive radiation, parallel evolution, and convergent evolution. Now coming to the next few evidences, evidence from embryology. Evidence from embryology. If you study the embryology of the organism, means study the developmental stages in the organism, you'll find that the early stages of development in the organism, early stages of development in the organism is same. Early stages of development in any organism is same. What becomes different is the later stages. The later stages in the development of the organism depends upon the species, depends upon the organism, how complex the organism is. Now let me take the example of say vertebrate embryo. Vertebrate embryo, fish hai, amphibian, reptile, bird, and mammal, right? In a vertebrate embryo, if we see in the early stages, if you remember embryology, we have studied in human reproductive system, you little about embryology, zygote formation, cleavage division, morula stage, blastula stage, gastrula stage. So right up to say the 5 6 stages, the development of the embryo is same in these organisms, and later on the morphogenesis and organogenesis will definitely vary depending upon the species or the type of organisms. Like say humans, it takes 9 months, gestation period is 9 months, whereas in an elephant the gestation period is 18 months, double the time. So obviously there is more complex development in an elephant, but it only is in the later stages. So that is what we are trying to explain here, that evidence from embryology, early stages, the development in all the organisms are same. The later stages of development depend upon the complexity of the organism or the species. So this evidence comes from embryology. Now, from embryology, there's a scientist who said that the developmental stages of, say, the brain formation, the heart formation, the spinal cord, all these are the similarities between one organism to another organism. And Haeckel in 1866, he gave what is called the recapitulation theory or biogenetic theory. Recapitulation theory or biogenetic theory, which states that ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. Three words, just three words in the recapitulation theory. Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. Ontogeny is the developmental stages. Recapitulates means repeats. And phylogeny is history of race or evolutionary history of race. Fine. So, three words in this theory. Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. Ontogeny is developmental stages. Recapitulates is repeats. And phylogeny is the evolutionary history of the race. Evolutionary history of the race. So now we combine it together. What is the meaning of this theory? Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. Developmental stages of the organism repeats the evolutionary history of the race. Developmental stages of the organism repeats the evolutionary history of the race. This is the meaning of these three words. Now, one example we can give, that in the human development of the embryo, there is presence of gill slits. Gill slits are found in the development of the human embryo. So, what does it tell us? It tells us that humans, right from the top, if you see gill slits, fish may have gill slits. So mammals have evolved. ये fishes are the lowest part of the vertebrate. Fishes के बाद amphibians, reptiles में I told you two diverge हुआ. One became evolutionary to the evolution of birds, and other were mammals. So the lowermost or the most simplest form of vertebrates were having gill slits. So it tells us about our evolutionary history, that we vertebrates, which are in the highest ladder of the vertebrates, we have basically the our ancestral vertebrate was a fish. So it does not show de-evolution, you know. So if the question is given that presence of gill slits in the development of the human embryo, does it um, does it explain that there is de-evolution, or what does it explain? So you have to say that it gives the evidence for organic evolution, and the evidence is from embryology, which tells us this theory. This is the recapitulation theory. Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, that is, the developmental stages of an organism will repeat the history of its race. So it's an evidence from embryology. So this is quite important there. Now next is evidence from biogeography. Evidence from biogeography. At the present time, you'll find that we have about 6 to 7 continents. Somewhere it's given as eight also. Anyway, but these huge land masses, they are separated from ocean or sea, ocean, say water bodies, separate them. Now, what does this evidence tell us? Biogeography. Again, I'll take one example and explain that word biogeography. If you see, we are here, India. Our neighbor, ye Africa, South Africa, ye India. You'll find elephants are found only in Africa and India. Elephants are native to Africa, India. Apes. Apes, there are four types of apes: gorilla, chimpanzee, orangutan, and gibbon. Apes are found Africa, India, and यहाँ पर Indonesia. So you don't find again apes nowhere else in the world. I'm not talking about zoo. I'm talking about native where it was found prevalent in the wildlife. So Africa, India, Indonesia. What does it explain? It explains that once upon a time, all of this was joined as a single landmass, right? There was single landmass which was called Pangea. Earth was a single landmass called as Pangea, and this Pangea broke. It started splitting, and it started splitting and started drifting apart. So, scientists have discovered tectonic plates which are moving, the land masses are moving either away from each other or combining together, moving towards each other. And now there are, this person's name is Russell Wallace, full name, Wallace. He has given six geographical realms. Realms means regions. He has mentioned six geographical realms depending upon the distribution of organisms on Earth. So, what do you mean by the term biogeography? Biogeography is the study of pattern of distribution of organisms in different parts of the earth. Distribution of organism or pattern of distribution of organism in different parts of the world or different parts of the earth is known as biogeography. Study of pattern of distribution of organisms in different parts of the earth is known as biogeography. So that is one. Second, earth was a single landmass which is called as Pangea, and this Pangea broke and the landmass started drifting apart. First evidence of breaking of Pangea is seen in the Mesozoic era. Mesozoic era, Pangaea broke up into two land masses, Laurasia and Gondwana. Gondwana landmass. So, first evidence was shown in the Mesozoic era. Mesozoic era, again, geographical time scale. So, Pangaea, Laurasia, and Gondwana. And now, like I said, now there are different continents, and Wallace, he divided, like I said, into six geographical realms. So what are the six geographical realms? Near Arctic includes the upper part of Canada and North America, Central America comes under near Arctic. Okay, so near Arctic is Canada and North America and Central America. Second, neotropical. Neotropical includes these South America, Brazil, all that. The lower part of America side is neotropical. Third, Palearctic. Palearctic. Palearctic includes Europe, okay? England, Britain, Europe, Russia, right up to Russia, or just before China, it will end. China se pehle. So this whole top part is Palearctic. Palearctic region or Palearctic. Then coming to Oriental. Oriental includes India, चाइना से स्टार्ट होता है चाइना इंडिया बर्मा मलेशिया इंडोनेशिया दिस होल पार्ट will be oriental ethiopian ethiopian is south africa ethiopian is south africa north africa will come under palearctic north africa palearctic में आ जाएगा and South Africa is Ethiopian, and last is Australia. Australia, this geographical realm includes only Australia. Fine. So, six geographical realms given by Wallace. If you search, you will find that some scientists believe that there are eight geographical realms, some believe there are nine geographical realms. But here, we right from the lower, I mean, been teaching for a very long time, we are explaining only six geographical realms. So, near Arctic, Canada, North America, Central America, Neotropical, South America, say down you come towards Brazil, etc. Then Palearctic is Europe, Russia, North Africa, right up to China. And Oriental starts from China and downwards towards India, Burma, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Ethiopian is basically South Africa, and last is Australia down there in some different part of the world there down. Now, if you're asked out of these realms, which one has the most diverse type of organism? Diverse means different type of organism. Then it is Ethiopian. Ethiopian has the most diverse type of organism. Diverse, different types. Whereas Australia has most unique type of organism. So unique type of organism is Australia. Most diverse type of organism is in Ethiopia, that is Africa. And then one more thing, Wallace line. Where is this Wallace line? Wallace line is an imaginary line between Oriental and Australia. Wallace line is an imaginary line which is passing through Oriental and Australia. So, evidence from biogeography tells us that Earth was a single landmass. The Earth landmass broke and they started drifting apart and got separated by ocean, sea, water bodies. And because of this, you will find that the fossil forms of organisms are found in certain parts of the world, all certain parts of the world only. You'll find the fossils only in that part of the world. And from there, the organisms they move to other parts of the world and started their evolution. In this, one thing I wanted to explain is about Himalayas. Himalayas, Himalaya, is the tallest mountain in the world, and the Himalayas they separate India with the next our neighboring country, that is the part the Tibet and China. Himalayas was once upon a time under a sea, And evidence again is that on Himalayan ranges we find shells, shells, the molluscans or the shells, which you find only in the sea. So it was thought Tethys, Tethys Sea. Himalayas was found in the Tethys Sea, uh, and because of the movement of the tectonic plates, the plate and the plate from the upper side, that is the China, yeah, they hit with each other, and this whole uh, Himalayan range, it came up, and the sea got obliterated, totally lost. So that is an also an evidence. This you don't need to write, this is just for your I'm just trying to make you understand that. And it is not that it is the movement has stopped, it is still moving. Tectonic plates are still moving, and that's why we are having tsunamis. You're hearing that so many tsunamis come. What is tsunami? Tsunami is basically underwater movement of the tectonic shifts, and because of these waves, they come up very high. So this type of movement is happening and still happening, and the earth will keep changing its the land and the water body will keep changing. Yesterday I was watching a documentary on Iceland, and in Iceland, very nicely there was a tectonic plate they showed, and over that they have made a bridge. They have made a bridge on that, and one side is your America, and other side is your Europe. Like, it's two different parts, and there's a bridge over that. And they say that that tectonic plate is still shifting about 1.5 centimeter per year. So that type of measurements, things the scientists are believing in. And so evolution is something which is not going to end or stop. It will happen, changes will take place. So that is evidence from biogeography. Now, in this, what type of questions can you be asked? So one direct question can be asked, give the evidence from here, or it can be asked a question that tulips, alligators, tulips are flowers, alligators animals, are found, are native. Native. See, now when you say found, mean now the world has become so small that you find animals or organisms all over the world because of the movement of, say, people, human have been able to carry things here and there. But we are talking about nativity, that it was first belonged there. So tulips and alligators are found in Eastern America and Eastern China. Tulips and alligators are native to Eastern America and Eastern China. Why? So here again, you have to say that this is an evidence from organic evolution, evidence from biogeography. Earth was a single landmass called Pangaea. The word Pangaea has to come. And then the Pangaea broke up into different land masses and got separated. So maybe Eastern America and Eastern China were joined together, got but separated due to the drift in the land drift, or got separated by water bodies. Now, if you look at the globe, when you see an atlas, it is like this flat. So you'll find America here and China there. But if you think of a globe, Earth is round. Think of it. The possibility is there. The world is like that. It's round like. So that's the evidence from biogeography. And the last evidence we are studying is evidence from molecular biology. Evidence from my molecular biology. That is, what type of molecules are found in the organism. First and foremost, Protoplasm. Protoplasm is found in every cell of an organism. In a unicellular organism, also like amoeba, has protoplasm. In a multicellular organism like humans, every single cell has protoplasm. Composition of protoplasm, same. No difference in the composition of protoplasm. Second, enzymes. Certain enzymes are present in all organisms, like say amylase. Enzyme amylase. Amylase will digest starch. Amylase, this enzyme is also present in amoeba, unicellular organism. Amylase is also found in our body, in our digestive system. It is there in the small intestine. Pancreatic juice में है, small intestine synthesizes amylase. So the presence of certain enzymes in organisms is common. You find you find amylase even in plants. Forget about the animal only part. Amylase is also found in the plants. Alpha amylase, beta amylase, which converts starch into glucose and glucose into starch. So go ahead, amylase. Then third, DNA. DNA is our genetic material, genes. DNA is common for all organisms except for some viruses. DNA commonality is present in the genes. Fourth, protein synthesis. Protein synthesis happens in all organisms, be it plants, be it animals, be it unicellular organism or multicellular organism. There is protein synthesis. Protein synthesis are happening in prokaryotes also, eukaryotes also. Protein synthesis and make use of genetic code, mRNA, rRNA, tRNA. So protein synthesis also gives an evidence that there is some sort of commonality in an organism. Slowly from a common thing they have diverged or separated into different type of organisms. And blood groups. Blood groups, presence of blood groups. Blood groups found in man, human, and apes. Monkeys don't have blood groups. So the highest vertebrate is primate. We are primates. Man, monkey, and apes. Or I'll write or say like this: monkey, apes, and mammals. Or man. Monkey, apes, and man. So we are closer to apes than monkeys. Monkeys have, we all come under primates, but our closer ancestor is the ape. Reason here is blood groups. Blood groups, plus there is some commonality even in our DNA. DNA of, see, in, okay, apes, apes have 48 chromosome, man has 46 chromosome. Okay, so they have one pair of chromosome extra, apes, but the DNA content of both are same. DNA content is same, one. And third and the sixth chromosome, third and the sixth chromosome of man and ape are having same bands, DNA banding, same bands. So it shows that we are closer to apes than monkey. Now this evidence is from molecular biology. So molecular biology, if you're asked about, explain how we can say that we are closer to apes than monkey. So firstly, you have to say that the apes have 48 chromosome, man has 46 chromosome, DNA content is same, first point. Second, the banding pattern of the third and the sixth chromosome in apes and man is the same. And third point, you can write that blood groups are found only in humans and apes. and not in monkeys. So these 3 points establish that we are closer to apes than to monkeys, and that evidence comes from molecular biology. So, with this, we have completed the topic on organic evolution, evidences of organic evolution, and next class